Okay, hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Victor, and I'm going to be your uncle for this training. So this is the CompTIA 2 core-based exams, the CompTIA A+ certification. Southtech is an accredited provider for training, delivery partner for CompTIA. So if you want to take any of the CompTIA certification, we can help monitor you, we can guide you, we can help you prepare to pass your exams. So either you're taking CompTIA A+, or you're doing CompTIA S+, Security+, or you're doing Pen Test, or you're doing any of the certifications from CompTIA. So this is a series that we have free on the channel. So we started from both the 220-1101 and also the 220-1102 content. So here we're looking at wireless security protocol and authentication. The goal here is that we want to be able to compare and contrast wireless security protocols and authentication method. Now, there are different methods through which systems can authenticate or allow people to have access to the resources that they have. Wireless service helps us to share resources. It's a form of network. Just like you have Bluetooth, just like you have cables, wires. And so these are what we call connecting media. You know, in networking, we have connect end devices, right? Then we have media. Then, of course, we have intermediary devices. Those are the three things we have when it comes to a network. End devices, which is your router, not your router, your printers, your tablets, your PCs, all of those guys, your phones, they are going to connect to the network. You call them the end devices. Then, of course, the intermediary devices are those devices that help the end devices to communicate with each other. So things like your switches, your routers, and all of those items. Then you now have your connecting media. So your connecting media is how are you going to connect? So how you're going to connect can be wireless, can be Bluetooth, can be infrared, it can be cables, and the cables can be Ethernet, it can be fiber optics, it can be anything. Networking is grouped in these three broad categories. So wireless is a medium through which we can transmit data. Now we're talking about authenticating. So how do we allow people access to the resources that we are transmitting? So we have protocols and encryption. So an encrypted wireless network relies on the exchange of passphrase between the client and the wireless access point, right? Or router before the client can connect to the network. So there are several standards. So there are different ways we can encrypt. So the encryption is what we call ciphertext and plaintext. So if my name is Victor, my ciphertext can be blah, 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 25678, blah, 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 25, whatever. So let me just show you an example when we say encryption. MD5 encrypt and MD4 encryption, decryption, right? Online. So let's just get one, maybe let's use this. So my name is Victor, right? If I say encrypt, so this is an algorithm. The algorithm is what? MD4. So this is what it becomes. So this is the ciphertext. So we are saying that to allow you access into online systems, right? So things are not stored in their plain text format. Rather, things are stored in ciphertext. So encryption is this to this. Decryption is what? This to this. So if I put this now and say, please decrypt it for me, it should turn back Victor. All right? So that's encryption and decryption. So we're talking about protocols and encryption. We want to encrypt because the password that we have. So we're saying that different algorithms, there are different protocols, there are different ways when I encrypt, right? So you have web, you have WPA2, of course, you have WPA and WP. Let's use ChatGPT to do some kind of comparison between different wireless protocols, their strength, their advantages, their disadvantages, and all of that. So let's look at wireless. Okay, let's say comparative. Let me zoom this out a little bit. Comparative tables showing different wireless encryption with respect to strength, weakness, I'm not spelling strength well. Weakness, advantages, disadvantages, application, and maybe a case study. So we want to understand wireless encryption protocols. So there are quite a lot of them. So let's look at each of them. So let's look at WEP, for instance. So the full name is what? Wired Encryption Privacy. I think that's one of the very first way that wireless was kind of encrypted. Now, strength initial security option for Wi-Fi. So that was like the very first thing. Let me see. So weakness easily cracked due to static weakness. If you have for some of us that are going into cybersecurity, if you have maybe an crack NG, or you have any of Axmet, or you have any of the cracking software with an adapter that can go into promiscuous mode, you can easily crack web. So what does adapter looks like? Wireless hacking adapter. So not all adapters can turn devices to promiscuous mode. Not all. Very few of them, especially this Alpha brand, right? You could use the Alpha brand to like hack a lot of Wi-Fi passwords. Now, web will be a lot much easier to crack because of the encryption protocol. Then advantage is very simple. That's one of the very first. Disadvantage, highly insecure. So this was applied in earlier networks. So I explore you to type this on if you have ChatGPT with you. Comparative table showing different wireless encryption with respect to strength, weakness, advantage, disadvantage, application, and case studies. So that's what I have here. Each of their case studies. So you have web, you have WPA, that's the initial protocol. Then you now have WPA2, right? Then you have WPA3. I think we're in WPA3 now. So can you add the year of inception and end of life? Let's kind of see when these guys were, when they actually started them, and when typically they might be discontinued. So nice. So 1999. I'm trying to think about. So you have Web 2, 2003, WPA 1, 2003, WPA 2, 2004, then WPA 3, 2018. So that's about the different encryption DIA. So you're going to see that WPA2 released in 2004. Let's see that's correct. Yes, WPA2 released in 2004. And you see the different examples and how they can be applied. So you have WPA3 in 2018, very correct. ChatGPT, very correct. So that's that about. Now let's look at authentication. So we say, just like we apply it in cybersecurity, that if you want to give people access, you have to be double sure. So authentication is trying to be sure. So you have 4 authentication methods used to access wireless networks. So you have single factor, multi-factor, radius, and attackers. Now, these methods apply to also wired networks. So single factor authentication where you just have username and password. So put in your username, put in your password. Multi-factor authentication. So we put in a username, put in your password. So please, we will send an OTP to your email or to your phone or to a device. So there's something extra, right? So more than one method to authenticate. Then you have radius, right? So that is a remote authentication dialing user service. A little bit older, but still gets applied. Dates back to the days of dial-up. I remember when I used to, maybe early, the GSM, age, when you have 1x modems, you can use phones using Bluetooth. You connect at 156 kilobytes per second. Bluetooth, internet connection phones. Most Nokia phones, Samsung phones then could do this. Let's say 20, 25 years ago. You could connect using a Bluetooth, right? And you're going to connect, your maximum speed is going to, let's say, 100 and something kilobyte per second, or you're going to get at best 200 and something kilobyte per second, right? I mean, for internet, right? Before you now have wireless now give you a higher, what was it called? A higher speed. I think, yes, I'm seeing here you could do 1 MB per second, but I personally, the maximum I was able to do on a Bluetooth phone, let's say a Nokia, let's say 3310. Let me see. Not this. Okay, not this. What was it called? I think that this is Nokia 7. Let me see. Not this. I can't remember. As on these phones, they were actually fun then. You could use them, you could connect, you could use them as a dial-up system to connect to a phone, and it was nice. Now, it has been widely distributed and still in use, though it has been updated over the years. A user who wants to access a network or online service can contact a radio server and enter user name and password information when requested. So understand that you have one-factor authentication, two-factor authentication, then you have radios, and you have TAC or TACAS or TACAS or TACAS. So depending on how you want to pronounce it. So you have the full name is Terminal Access Controller Access Control System. So this is a little bit older. You have them. If you're taking any of the Cisco certifications, either routing, switching, wireless essentials, or you are taking enterprise networking, security and automation, which is ENSA, you're going to see that a lot, all of these authentication systems. Then the next one is Kerberos. Kerberos has always been applied to Windows. That is the standard Windows used for authentication. Microsoft version of Kerberos is the default method for Windows authentication for joining domains. Versions are also available on macOS, Linux, and other operating systems. Now let's look at malware removal and prevention. So how do we make sure that, how do we ensure that we don't have a malware? How do we ensure that we don't have security breach within our systems? So let's look at the objective. The objective is given a scenario, detect, remove, prevent malware using appropriate tool and methods. So as a PC technician, there are some things that is expected of you at an intermediate level. You should be able to detect. Given any scenario, I've seen systems whereby a technician is called to remediate a malware attack. So you should be able to do some of these basic items. So given a scenario, detect, remove, prevent malware using appropriate tools and methods. So while security has evolved over the past few years to adapt to increasing available tools that can be used to hack into a wireless network, and so cannot safely install a wired or wireless network using the default settings. The following section describes some security threats and options available to mitigate those threats. So what's a malware? So malware is the umbrella word that encompasses anything that can cause a system malfunction. So it's just a broad word. So it involves viruses, worms, Trojan horses, spyware, rootkits, keyloggers, hardware, and other types of undesirable. Anything that has malicious software. This two words combination, malicious software. So let's look at a comparative analysis. A comparative, like I told you, if you want to learn properly, if you want to be able to distinguish items, if you want to be able to tell between A and B, try to do a comparison. So let's do a comparative table showing differences means of propagation, case study and examples, how to mitigate, that's countermeasures, and okay, let's stop there. For different malware types. So you see, it's going to understand that a malware is typically a broad classification, right? Malicious software. So you have virus. So malicious software that attaches itself to files, to clean files and spread across the computer systems. So you have worm, you have Trojan. I can remember very, very well this Raila Odinga or malware is like an adware. That's an adware, ADWARE, an adware. So what it does is, I think there was a time this African guy, Raila Odinga, election history, right? So I think that was in 1997, I can't remember, or let's say 2003, 2005. Okay, good. I'm trying to trace when this malware was like in vogue, sometime early 2005, 2006, thereabout, if I can remember. So it was an adware for his political campaign. He's an African kind of so I think this thing spread all over the internet. So what happens is that it just comes up, it just pops up, right? And displays on your screen and tells you vote for Odinga. It took me about 3 days to sort that out. I got a patch that once installed goes to registry and fix that. No antivirus, no anti-malware could do the fix. So it just displays an unwanted ad. It can be malicious, leading to other malware installations. But this one was not like malicious. What it was doing was just to distract and reduce your productivity, right? So you have some of these examples. So you have spyware. So this will actually monitor and collect. So you have ransomware. What will it do? It will encrypt your data, then ask for you for ransom. Then you have Trojan. Trojan will typically act like a real guy, right? Where is it? Disguise itself as legitimate software, but delivers a malicious payload once inside the host system, right? Worm, standalone, replicates itself to space. So this worm replicates itself, but virus attach itself to other clean files to now spread. So you should be able to understand their main difference, how they propagate, understand some case studies and some examples, right? And you should also understand countermeasures, how you should ensure that, why is stuff like this? Just a second. Okay. What you should do to prevent such. So for instance, for a malicious software, like a virus, use updated antivirus. I don't tell my clients, I don't tell my students that you have an antivirus or anti-malware does not solve the issue, right? You need to have an updated antivirus. So it's an updated antivirus that actually an updated antivirus that actually keeps you protected. Because if it's not updated, it would have the antis. Because the antivirus vendor researches, makes the antis, then when you update, you are at par with the antis that they have. So you're able to mitigate against all of these virus. So you have to keep it up to date. Then keep operating systems up to date, employ reliable anti-malware solution, backups. For ransomware, you want to have backups, educate users against phishing. Phishing is a social engineering strategy. You have phishing, vishing, smishing. All of those are different ways, either via voice or via email or spam where they are targeting top executives. These are all strategies that people can use to like send malicious links to you, and once you open it, you cannot be compromised. You cannot maybe lock up your items. So if you have backups, it helps so that if something goes, you are not into the rope of trying to pay. You already have a backup. You can clean up and re-implement, and also try to make sure that such does not happen again. So you should be able to understand their differences for exams. So you have malware, which is the umbrella word. Then you have Trojan, rootkit, virus, spyware, ransomware. I very much remember the WannaCry virus. Most antivirus were partners to AVG, Norton, Kaspersky. Most of these vendors have now, after some while, now had the kit to be able to like take care of that situation. Keyloggers, book sector virus, crypto miners. Let's look at tools and methods. So aside understanding what they are and they're different, being able to differentiate them, you need to be able to understand the tools and methods, right? Antivirus, anti-malware software. So you have Kaspersky. Okay, let's ask ChatGPT. Top 5 anti-malware tools and methods. Is that the right word? Anti-malware. We want to look at tools and methods. Yeah, tools and methods. And let's have a comparison table. All right. So you have very, very top brands, right? So, and there are also different methods that you can explore to try to make sure that you don't get busted. So you have Bitdefender, they have for different platforms. Then you have Norton, you have AVG, you have Kaspersky, you have ESET, you have Malwarebytes, you have quite a lot of them, right? One of my favorite is AVG and ESET. They're on the light side and they do the job, right? So recovery mode, at times when you have an issue and it's hard for you to be able to come back, you might explore the recovery method. You can make use of the recovery mode. The recovery mode is able to help you reset the system back to how the system was. It's going to be able to give you option to reset keeping your files or reset without keeping your files. User education is very key. So you cannot fight malwares without user education. That's one of the very first thing from a security standpoint is that the company should have an information security policy document. So the information security policy document is what tells us what we should do, what we shouldn't do, how we should do it, and all of that, right? So, and when the information security policy document is done, then we can now train users from the very top to the least person in the ladder, in the organogram is trained, then so that they can be able to identify what to do and what not to do. So these are some of the things: remove malware, report suspicious files, quarantine suspicious file, disable auto run or autoplay. Auto run, autoplay, it's having a flash drive, having a pen drive, having a CD, just running itself once inserted. So you want to make sure that somebody has to like switch that on. You can use some utilities to activate some of these things, and some anti-malware can also give you those options. So anti-phishing training can be there. I think there's this quiz, this jigsaw, what's it called? Security training phishing. Did I get that? Well, I'm not getting the right one. There's a free, okay, yes, jigsaw phishing quiz. So this is it. So phishing. So you could train your users, or you could create customized stuff and you train them. So anti-phishing training is very important, like the jigsaw training I showed you about. You could do a custom training, or you could build an application, or you could do something. Training can involve weekly reports, phishing examples. Some IT departments can even internally release fake phishing attempts to see if anyone will respond. Then OS reinstallation. So OS reinstallation is often a good solution for an infected computer, right? It can solve the problem. You can, before you do that, you can actually isolate the computer from any network connection, then change all the passwords, especially banking and work passwords. Then you back up your files. Then you make sure you keep the computer off the network during the processes, because some of these viruses and malwares can spread across through your network, right? Of course, don't forget to enable automatic updates for your operating system and for your antivirus malware. Your operating system is going to have some patches that's going to help protect you against malware. And your antivirus software, like I said earlier on, if you have one and it's not updated, it doesn't mean anything, right? Because if a new malware comes up after more recent than your update, then you're going to be down. So let's look at social engineering, threats, and vulnerabilities. So here, CompTIA wants us to be able to explain, right, the different social engineering attacks, threats, and vulnerabilities, right? You want to be able to explain them. Now, botnets have made hacking so easy. And I say botnet is just several bots coming together to form a network to try to attack a system. Then updated antivirus, malware software, and other software does the heavy lifting in protecting network and devices. Now, what is social engineering? So understand social engineering to mean you exploiting the human behavior. The human behavior. What's the human behavior? The humans want to help. Humans want to be of great assistance to people. People want to solve problems. People want to lift burdens of persons around them. So how is that going to be possible? Okay, please, I forgot my laptop. I need to send an email, please. Let me use the laptop and send an email. I need to just sign in and send. There's a job, there's a contract. I think you're into cybersecurity. I think you're into hardware, IT stuff. That job has to do with building a website, setting up a network for a company, and training the employees. So we're able to train them. So I'm not with my laptop. I need to send an email. Please just give me your laptop, just 5 minutes. So you want to help. You give that laptop out. And what the person does is that the person signs it. The person can even go to your history and start checking out. So that is that. Exploiting human vulnerability. So this doesn't have anything to do with softwares, hardwares. No, this is humans. So that's why without training, no matter how nice your IT systems are, you're going to go down, because the people that work with you are not trained. So they don't know when somebody's trying to do phishing, when somebody's trying to do dumpster diving. Dumpster diving is a social engineering methodology where people go to dump sites, dust bins, where trash is being thrown away. Try to pick them as if they can get some digital assets. They can get some intellectual property, some protected information, some information that is not actually for everyone. So if they can get that, that cannot be the very first stage for them. That can be the very first stage for them to now start exploring other things and possibilities. So in social engineering, we're talking about phishing, vishing, shoulder surfing over somebody's shoulder, then whaling, tailgating, right? So in whaling, so somebody drives through, try to see if you can get Wi-Fi passwords and the rest. Then you have Wi-Fi signals and the rest. Then you have tailgating, following somebody behind. Then you have impersonation, trying to clone somebody's identity or ID. Then dumpster diving, looking out into people's being, and if you can see. Then evil twin, trying to create a duplicate Wi-Fi access, leaving it open, no password. Then when people come, let's say it's a bank, the name of the bank is Southtech Bank. So you come around and you try to see if there's any free Wi-Fi you see. Then, but another person is creating a Southtech Bank also. So and you feel that is you feel the same thing, and you get in and why they are trying to like hack you. A duplicate or counterpart that acts in the contrary, nefarious, and in other manner, right? So that is what you call the evil twin. So it's used in attacks and is a social engineering methodology. So phishing. So if you did that test earlier on, you're able to identify the jigsaw test, you're able to identify a phishing email. Then you have vision. So this has to do with voice whaling, where somebody tries to try to catch a big fish or a whale. Okay, yes, a whale, somebody being in the organization. Then spear phishing, it's synonymous also. Then impersonation, then you have shoulder surfing, I've explained them. You have tailgating, dumpster diving, evil twin, fraudulent wireless access point that looks like or that imitates the legitimate one. Then let's look at some threats. Distributed denial of service. So there's a difference between distributed denial of service and denial of service. So distributed denial of service is when the attack is coming from several systems, several attackers, or several threat actors, whereas this denial of service when it's coming from one specific and is targeting a specific device, right? So, but one thing about the denial of service that I'm always say denial of service, we're trying to say that our IT systems, our processes, we can no longer have access to them. It can be that we cannot print. It can be that we cannot access the internet, or we cannot fill a form. We cannot browse the website. We cannot fill a form. We cannot download a file. All of those normal stuff we will do, we cannot do that. It then means we have been denied service. And what's the job of a server? A server is going to be either a file server, that means like Google Drive is a file server, is going to help people collect files, give people files, share files with different permissions. That's a file server. Or an email server, something like Gmail, Yahoo, all of that. Amazon have their simple email service too. They have those servers that can send emails, do run those services. Or you have a web server that hosts a website. Those are different types of servers. So, and the service, they run services. I've already explained the services that they run. So once any of these services are denied, you call that denial of service. But when it's coming from thousands of computers, then you call them distributed denial of service. But if it's just targeted at one, you call it denial of service. Then zero-day attack. Zero-day attack is that attack that happens before the owner of the software gets aware of that particular malicious vulnerability. So that's why it's called zero-day, before you're aware, right? That's why I say it might have unknown security vulnerabilities, right? They ship something, software out or a hardware out, and the manufacturer does not understand, does not know. Somebody discovers it before, and if an attack happens, you call that a zero-day attack. And of course, spoofing, general term for malware attacks, so it comes from trustworthy source. So you can say, if you say a spoofed MAC address, it then means that this MAC address, okay, I couldn't get that, so let me say, it then means that this MAC address can, if it's spoofed, it then means somebody is using a tool like Tactinium or any other tool, and you make your own MAC address become this, and you do something else. So you call that spoofing. So you have IP spoofing, MAC spoofing, and several other types of spoofing. So that's to do with identity theft. Tactinium. Don't mind me. Tactinium markers, mark changer. Okay, Technetium. Technetium. So that's the mark changer. So it's a free utility. You could use it, could be used for spoofing. Let me try the word spoof. Right. So free utility to spoof MAC address instantly. So all you need to do is to download it, but be very wary to use this tool because this is like a caveat. If in your IT infrastructure, your MAC address have been let's say, mapped to a particular resource. It can be internet, it can be a file server, it can be an email server, whatever. My brother, my sister, you will not be able to access it again because this guy is going to change it. And you might have, so you want to be able to do this in a test environment. Don't do this in a production environment, because if you have some access control that has to do with your Mac, if you change it, it then means that you will not be able to have access to it. So you just need to download it and you tap random. It's going to keep changing. So this is your original. It's going to keep changing your MAC address. Then you cannot do whatever you need to do. So you have man in the middle, you have brute force, you have dictionary attack. There's what we call insider threat. Very, very key, very, very important. So an insider threat is a threat that happens, maybe disgruntled employee, dishonest employee, people that are not happy. Somebody is owed salary for like 6 months and the person has been working, has been doing his job. Somebody from outside is going to like clear their person and say, no, we're going to give you times 10 your salary. We need social information, we need social information. And when that attack happens, you can classify that as an insider threat. And of course, we have SQL injection. So for any SQL injection to occur, SQL is structured query language. So any database application will normally have a database. So you have different types of database. So your MySQL, let me pull up a notepad. So you have MySQL, let me zoom this out. You have MongoDB. You have SQL Server. You have so many. So for you to query, you have Oracle. So for you to query, a database just has tables that stores data in rows and columns. So data is going to be saved here. So for you to be able to access, to perform what we call CRUD operations, for web programmers are going to understand it very well. CRUD. So CRUD is create, read, update, delete, right? So for you to perform CRUD operations, that means you want to create, let's say, a table. You want to read from a table. You want to update a table, the parameter of a table. You want to delete data from a table. For you to do that, the way you do that is using what? SQL. I was supposed to say SQL. SQL, structured query language. So that's how you can query these databases. So the language can be used to attack database to steal. You can check the channel on digital forensics, check the channel on security, CompTIA Security Plus, or check the channel on CompTIA Pen Test. So most of those things are done very, very elaborately, in a very elaborate manner. So you have cross-site scripting too. Some vulnerabilities can also involve non-compliant systems. When systems are not compliant to, let's say, standards and laws and procedures. Most countries have their regulations. Then most companies are in some sectors, and those sectors have their regulations. So once you are not compliant, or even the policies of the company itself, it can become a vulnerability. Then you have unpatched systems that are not compliant, systems that are not patched, that are not updated. Of course, unprotected systems that are out of life. You have, in previous class, we looked at the Windows XP. So for instance, in 2023, 2024, somebody still using XP. That has gone out of life. That will not be supported any longer. No updates, no patches. So if you use that at your own peril. Then there's also called bring your own device. So bring your own device is like a policy a company can have. Let's ask ChatGPT, can you create me a summarized, I don't want something lengthy, summarized BYOD policy for a training academy. Right? So who should bring device? When you bring the device, what can you do with the device? Right? What access do you have? And all of that. So those are the kind of content that you see in the BYOD policy. So the purpose, personal devices, the scope, what you can use, what you cannot use, then the guidelines, what kind of requirements is needed, who can access the network, how is data stored, can you store companies' data on your device, on your mobile device, who does the training, who does the installation, if it's stolen, what happens, what are the security measures, who has liability for anything that happens, is it a user, is it the company, is it shared, if a policy is violated, how is HR contacted, what does HR do, and all of that. That's what you have in the BYOD policy. So I think in the subsequent sessions, we are going to be looking at Microsoft Windows OS security settings. I think we should also consider it here because it still has to do with security. So Windows have what we call Defender. So if you say Defender, you're going to see that utility, right? Defender and Firewall. If you click on it, you're going to see, just go to Start Windows Security or Start Defender. You're going to see that you should be able to have some settings, Defender, Windows Firewall Defender. You should be able to have some settings and tell what kind of access you want on your system. Okay, let me not do this advanced. Let me just do Defender. That is this, not the advanced, Windows Defender. So you have Windows Firewall Defender, then you have with advanced security. So let's look at this. So you have different, what you have access to, whether you want to turn it on, whether you want to turn it off, what you want to be notified on, what you want to block, and what you want to on. So those are the kind of things you see in that security. So a firewall can be physical, can be software-based. You have different software-based and hardware-based firewall. They just help to control traffic, inbound and outbound. At times we say egress and ingress traffic. So you can actually activate, you can switch it on and on it. You could do port security too. You could disable some ports, some devices and all of that in your Windows Defender. Users and group. I think, okay, let's pause here and let's continue from, let me see, I want to group the content. Okay, let's continue from access control, right? Access control is a very important concept. So I want to take my time and explain it in great detail. Thank you very much. See you in the next series.